Hello, and welcome to Perspective. So this is a show by founders of small creative agencies, giving our perspective on starting and running our own companies. The aim is to provide some useful advice and inspiration to others, as well as learn from each other and some others we may get to come talk on the show. This is our fourth episode. My name is John Dark. I'm a director at Every Interaction, and with me I have Dan Gent from Lighthouse London.
Hello, John. How's it going?
Yeah, good, thanks. You all right?
I'm good.
Good stuff. This week, we thought we would try talking about specialisms, particularly because we both have slightly different ones.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we have a certain degree of focus that I thought would be interesting to cover.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the first question is it important to have one? I mean, we all do digital stuff. Today, that means a lot of different things. And I think this started with the web industry in the 90s, whereby the web used to be a much, much simpler place. The websites were mostly static. There were no real tools or services to speak of. The whole industry formed around that model. All of those agencies that sprung up in those early days were providing more of a full service offering, doing everything from the planning, the information architecture, the design, the build, the SEO, marketing, emails, advertising, even sort of print and identity work. They really were sort of full package, everything in one, full service. And I guess the companies that exist today that are still doing this are the juggernauts, the same companies that started back then. They've been bought and merged several times over into big sort of multinational machines these days, and they're all servicing larger, slow-moving clients.
Yeah.
I guess since the Web 2.0 days, the web has just generally become a lot more functional. The things we do online have evolved, and so has the market that services those businesses and industries.
Yep.
And I guess that's where the startup movement has come from, and also where agencies like ours have sprung up from to service those markets, those smaller sized companies who see opportunity to launch something new. And as a result, I guess we've seen a lot of these smaller to mid-sized companies moving away from full service, and even a lot of the full service companies starting to slowly sort of shrivel away and start to disappear a bit.
Yeah.
And I think it's these smaller and mid-sized companies having specialisms that make them more agile, more suited to this new emerging market, and just generally more flexible.
Yeah, it feels like you're right. There was a bit of a land grab at the beginning where if people needed it, you could offer it. And I suppose those agencies must have just spiraled out of control at the beginning because there wasn't enough kind of competition to balance them out.
Yep.
Yeah, is it important to have a specialism? Yes, it is.
I think as a smaller agency, as we both are, when you're starting off, you were just two people at the beginning, right? And I think that was the same for us. I think obviously it's much harder to be full service when you are smaller. You can't just suddenly do everything out of the box straight away.
Mm-hmm.
And with limited resource, you're faced with a decision of being able to do more things, but perhaps be less of an expert in them. Student of all trades, master of none. Whereas you have the option to choose whether to be able to double down, choose a specialism, make it your focus, and become more valuable to your clients in more specific ways. That's in contrast to obviously keeping things broad and perhaps appealing to a wider base of people, but also potentially reducing the value of what you have to offer to new potential clients.
Yep.
So therein lies the interesting discussion about whether specialisms are important and how valuable they can be to businesses like ours, especially when starting up.
Yeah, I think we had in a way we were quite generalists because we just had quite a broad experience, because I suppose being a developer and Tom being a designer, we had very different kind of careers. Tom was public sector and I was sort of agency and like tech product company. And it felt like we touched a lot of things. So we could kind of talk a full service game. But yes, we couldn't deliver, certainly not things like marketing services or anything like that. I suppose this is the problem with big agencies, why they're so expensive, is you go to them, they've got a hell of a lot of capacity that you're never going to need, but you're still paying for in that rate, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
I heard someone talking about the Hollywood method of doing projects. Have you heard of this?
I haven't.
So the Hollywood method is where you have, I suppose, someone like us, like a small, like you go to one person, be they a freelancer or a small agency, and they kind of put together the team like you were making a movie.
Okay.
So that would be what we did, right? You'd go and find someone to develop it, and you'd find someone, a marketing partner or some such, and put it together for that particular project. And they didn't mention this, but it just made me think that like going to a big full service agency is essentially in that metaphor is basically turning up to somewhere that's already hired like the action hero, the romantic lead, and like got all the best actors and actresses across those, but you don't need them all for your films, but you're still going to pay for them.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So yeah, that was that just made me think, God, that's why I don't want to do full service, really.
Yeah, I feel that being a specialist today gives you a bit of an edge, and I feel that more and more these days the clients see value in approaching several different specialists to address different areas. At the same time, they may have some of those areas already covered. Like we've seen a lot of movement with certain types of clients who are bringing in teams in-house. They may have their own development team.
Mm-hmm. They
may have their own marketing team. They may even have their own design team. And they're only looking for help with a very specific slither because the size at which they are operating, they don't need those resources in-house full-time as well.
Sure. I don't think we see as many of them because I suppose by the very nature of what you provide, as in user experience design, it's never going to be the full project. So we don't get many people coming to us and saying, oh, here's my marketing team that we're going to use, or people will come and say, I've done some designs, but that's not the same thing. That's normally a bad sign. But I feel a lot of pressure actually, because we probably get people that are looking for full service. Actually, they just can't afford the big agencies, and they'd be chewed up and spat out by the big agencies. Their project wouldn't stand a chance in terms of actually coming out any good.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't kind of talk how marketing would work, even though we don't really provide, we have marketing partners, we don't really provide, we provide some strategy, I suppose, but we don't provide actually delivering marketing. If I don't talk a bit of marketing, it's like that's a gap in what we can offer that someone else will fill, and potentially they'll want that person to then fill the entire thing.
Right.
So we do have a specialism, but it feels dangerous to talk about it sometimes in terms of winning, in terms of getting it right with the client and winning the work.
Well, how would you describe the types of client that you would typically work with?
Really early stage startups, just people with ideas, and if we're lucky, some money. Then sort of small, medium-sized businesses, and kind of entrepreneurial people within them. So probably the people that own the businesses and they've seen an opportunity to do something. And then, bigger clients, which would be just bigger businesses, but more often than not, those people like need a website rather than like a digital product or something. I feel that we are having to get a bit more. We are having to spread out a bit more and kind of cover a few more things. Just
that's more advice and consultation in those areas rather than actually delivering.
No, exactly. We don't actually do, we don't run an SEO campaign or anything. But again, it's quite, people's perception of what that is different. They think, well, do you do SEO? It's kind of, well, yes and no, and then it's a vague answer, and then that's never as good as someone just going, yep, we do. So
yep.
To provide the full offering these days, especially around startups, to provide like an actual coherent thing that's going to provide them value, I feel that there are a few different types of things you have to be able to put in front of them, or they're not going to get that value. They're either going to build something with you that they then don't know how to market, or they're going to we'd never do just the marketing, or they're going to like get loads of people on something that's just not up to it.
Yeah. Now, what I find interesting is turn the question around to us, describing the type of clients that we typically work with. I think we will say exactly the same thing.
Right.
We work with startups of various stages. Some are early stage, some maybe a bit further down the line, and they have a product that's already been made and been in the market for a while, but there's a lot of room for improvement or optimizations, or they're doing adding new features and functionality to that. And innovation teams inside larger businesses who want to try something new, disrupt their existing market. Also, people with websites, and being user experience guys, we tend to focus more on the apps and the functional side of stuff, the tools, the services, the stuff that has functionality and does something. We just put it all in a big bucket called products, really.
Yep.
And we do websites because that's where we've come from. But we typically these days only really do them for the services and the clients that we've worked on for other things, so that we can, we know the product best. We can do web. We sort of tie the whole thing in. We'll do web stuff that's generally more functional, but we tend not to get involved too much in independent, what we just call static content sites.
Sure. Essentially,
we tend to do less of that these days. But at the same time, we're doing quite different things, I think, when we come to describing it and how we present ourselves as being independent specialists in these different things.
So I think that definitely the level of knowledge a client has before approaching every interaction is probably on average higher than a client that approaches us.
Okay.
I think because I feel if they are looking for UX and looking for that piece of the jigsaw, they know why they're doing that, and they know the other pieces of the jigsaw they need.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
It is. I think that they already have certain elements of it covered off, and that's why they come to us, because they go looking for someone who is a specialist and they find us. They already have a development partner or a development team in-house, and they probably also have somebody, sort of the product owner of sorts, who's the main client-side contact that we'll be dealing with. And they're simply missing the sort of UX and the design parts. Go looking for specialists, come across us, and I think because of the way we market ourselves, that's exactly why we get that type of trade through the door.
Yeah. No, for us, it's not that they don't have knowledge. They're not kind of just floundering around, but they are looking for someone to tell them what's important about what they're trying to achieve. And the standard question we'll get often is, should I build this as an app? Should I build it as a website?
Right.
So they haven't got, they need someone to basically get them into the position where they'd know what they were talking about, to be able to then go and invest in UX or invest in marketing or wherever they should invest.
Yep.
And I think maybe one of the interesting things about that is how we sort of are defining specialism, because yes, the skills can be specialist, but actually I think it's kind of more the approach that's specialist in a way, the approach of saying, you don't know where to start with this, and we know how to get it to launch, like whatever shape that may take, and whatever skills you may need within that, we can sensibly advise you how to get there. So it's being a specialist of that, rather than saying we are design and development specialists or or a marketing specialist, or the speciality is no, specialism. Speciality is like something a chef does, isn't it? Like yeah, it's more that approach, which I feel we're more at risk of specialisms in a way, because if our specialism is technology, well, like what if we're a flash specialist? You know what I mean? Like what if we're a specialist of something that just goes down the pan? Like the industry just rules it irrelevant, then that's risky. But if you're a specialist of a certain approach, then that's different. And I suppose that's what you guys are, because UX and design is an approach rather than, well, how do you define it? Do you think it's an approach or like a skill?
I think people come to us because they think it's a skill, but I think it is really obviously an approach. It's an integral part of the project and the thinking and the planning and the delivery and everything else.
Yes,
it's
that's it. It's so hard to describe. That's the problem with trying to make it understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah. That it's often easier to just be, this is our specialism. It's something that doesn't actually make sense with what we actually do.
Yeah, and I that's why I was trying to keep it, trying to ask like what kind of clients do you work with, and I guess what position they're in, because I guess people come to you because they're in a certain type of position, right? And you guys are the people to get that problem that they have solved. They're in an early stage position. They perhaps don't have so much of an idea about how to run the project. They don't have the experience to go hunting down separate development teams who are specialist in a certain technology stack or methodology that they realize they need in order to get their job done. They're not that far down the road. And so those are the people that would probably come to us more, perhaps, because they recognize the need for this slither of the process that they know they don't have someone to do yet. And you would get people who need a little bit more hand-holding in those early stages. Maybe it's their first time doing something. This is their first ball game.
I think the thing we've made as a specialism is the kind of helping people define what their first release of a product should be by basically, we've done a lot of messaging and a lot of work on trying to avoid the classic agency thing of, I want to build the new Instagram. Okay, yeah, we'll build that for you. Here's a ridiculous quote. And then they just go for it, and it's just a failure because that's not how you build the new Instagram. So trying to work with people in a way that actually provides value, we've kind of gone into that whole like lean startup world. Of kind of saying, what's the minimum thing we could put out here, and trying to talk them round into that, and so doing like workshops and things around that, and that has become our specialism. But it's another dangerous one though, because you are essentially saying, like, a full service agency could never do that, because you're essentially talking people out of doing work a lot of the time.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you ever get to the point where you go through the beginning parts of this process and then advise the client not to go ahead?
It's normally fairly evident if they shouldn't go ahead.
Yeah. If they come to you and say, I want to be the new Instagram.
well, no, but also if after the prototyping, they show it to some users and then it's like, yep, radio silence because it didn't come off,
Yep.
And that's fine. That's what prototyping is for sometimes.
So that does happen. You would get something to a prototype stage, test the market, and at that point you would sort of halt the project.
No, we normally get them to do most of the testing, because we're kind of quite a believer in that. Actually, part of the value we're doing is they're an entrepreneur, and this workshop of taking their idea, sketching it, and then doing a little prototype they can have on their phone. Part of it is like a boot camp in how to do product management. How to get feedback, how to then feed that into the thing, and so a lot of it is just like a wake up call of like, take this idea that you think is going to work and put it in front of people, and then find out that they don't think it's going to work. So it's we really encourage, we sort of demonstrate to them how to do that testing, but we really encourage them to actually have it on their person. It's on their phone in their pocket. Go and find your customer. We give them a little script. We work with them on like what the demo is. They'll normally do that, and then they'll realise whether or not they've got the kind of, that's when you see behind the curtain, right, and realise that it's actually really hard to do a startup.
Yeah, no, that's a really, really good idea. So has a client ever turned around to you after doing that and said, we're going to put the brakes on at this point?
They've disappeared.
They have, really? Okay, so yes.
yeah. But again, it's difficult because that as a specialism is hard when you're up against someone that's saying, we'll just build it for you, Well,
you're just being honest. What you're doing is the correct approach.
But you're being mildly negative as well.
Yeah, but for their own goods.
It doesn't sell well. It doesn't sell well. So
no.
Sometimes the proposals that go out will be like, we'll do this prototyping, and then of course we'll go ahead and build the new Instagram. but let's stop after the prototyping, and you'll have the opportunity to rethink what features go in it.
Yeah. We've certainly worked on some projects in the past, I think, that have gotten to that stage, or even earlier, and we've tried to convince the client to reconsider, or to at least pivot, and to try a different avenue to see if it has greater success. And that on occasion we've been in a situation where they would want to press ahead regardless. And looking back at how those projects turned out, I think I probably would have preferred to have turned that away at that point. Yeah.
I mean, that's a difficult specialism to have, isn't it? The specialism of reducing the amount of work you can do and bill for. But that is that's the lean, that is the lean startup way. And we kind of believe in it. It's just it's packaging it up for a client, because the lean startup is actually how you're meant to run your own startup, not how you're meant to work with a web agency. So it's kind of it's finding a model there that actually that can work is tricky. It's taken a while.
No, it's really interesting. Do you ever break from the formula and do something that doesn't follow that process?
Like if it was more like an innovation team, and I felt the money wasn't someone's personal money, and you will find out more if you build more. Like you will. Like the prototype can find you out a bit, but not loads. It's meant to be, like I say, the prototype's meant to help them with a way of thinking. If people have got the budget and they want to try something out, and I don't feel like it's going to kill their business, then absolutely at that point we kind of we say, well, we should prototype this, obviously. But if you don't think prototyping is of value, we can build it. We still try and keep it quite minimal, but that's kind of their call with their business's budget, rather than someone who's like, I've got this great idea, and you're just like, there's no way that idea's got any chance if you just build something before you've even met a customer. So, we just can't do that because it's stupid.
Yep. So in a way, your specialism is helping early stage people validate their business ideas. And
are we doing a vision statement here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Stop it! I hate them. Well, I don't hate them. I just can't find a good one. So I spend so much of my day thinking about it. I can't do it on this podcast as well. Yes, yeah. We help. Okay, we help define how We help define how a product should look when it first meets a customer.
Yep.
How's that one?
That's not bad. I like it.
It's okay. It's a bit clunky.
It's really hard, isn't it? It is really hard defining all these things.
I don't like it. Web design and development, John. Web design and development. What's wrong with that? Nothing. Move on.
So would you say that you then specialize in a type of client?
No, because I think that approach can. Okay, yes in what they're trying to achieve, but no, not in what type of business they are.
Yep.
So they've got either an idea for a new product, or I would extend it into the web design field and say, if they've got a problem, like a complex message or something that no one quite knows how to explain, that's their business, then you can sort of apply the same things to it and say that is also, you should be testing, you can prototype that, or at least you can go and experiment with the content. So although, to be honest, that's a little bit retrofitting the fact we do websites. Like yourself, of course you still do websites because you can do websites and people want websites. But does it fit into the new specialism of what we're saying? It probably doesn't, but I don't think we're ready to say we don't do websites at all. So it's kind of like trying to say, well, what are the commonalities between those two things that we can say is our specialism and get good at? And I think it is that, really starting with the problem definition and then working your way towards the solution, not assuming that you know what the solution should be at all at the beginning. Yeah.
I feel that we've been getting more and more specialist over time, I would say, as well. I think when we started, obviously a bit more desperate for work, I'd say, at the very beginning. You would take on whatever you could, I guess, to pay the bills and earn some money.
Yep.
When you're really starting out, it's still, I guess, because we both sort of fell into this in a way, without really much of a business plan of our own. If only there was someone like us to guide us through this process when we were first starting out. And
in audio form.
I guess over time that we've become more and more specialist and identified our strengths and the things that we felt that we delivered best, and focused more and more of those, and sort of done away with the things that I thought made us a bit more generalist in the past.
What were they?
I mean, when we were first starting out, we were doing a lot more web work in general, websites, I guess. But when we were first starting out, we were doing... Crikey, we're doing...
Banner ads.
No, never banner ads. No. No. Oh, I tell a lie.
We've all done banner ads.
One client's just popped into mind who we did it for, that it worked out lucrative enough as a sort of continuous stream of small income.
Tom's a sucker for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll go, oh, but I could just knock it out. It would be so, what I mean? It's just like, no, you're doing banner ads. Stop
yeah. That quickly becomes a thorn in your side. We were doing like flash animation and stuff at one point.
Right. Okay.
Which was a little bit crazy. All sorts of things. We've done projects in the past where we just do solely the sort of UX bit and don't actually touch any design,
right? Okay.
Which has been interesting. But we definitely prefer to have ownership of the design. We feel if we see someone else designing what we've done UX for, then you always want to do it differently.
Yeah, of course. And I suppose it feels like, well, what's wrong with our design?
Yeah, and very recently we've been approached by people to just do user testing on their product and run sort of remote user testing sessions, labs, which we're perfectly capable of doing and could do a good job of it, but it's not something we generally separate out and say is a separate service. it's something we do as part of our own process, and we do it on our own work.
Well, it's harder to wrap that up as a deliverable, isn't it? Like when we, because we do research and we do some lightweight user testing, but you're right. Like as soon as I've done them, I'm moving on. Like my head doesn't want to stay there. It's like, okay, this has told me how I should go ahead and try and solve this. So that's where I want to be now. I don't want to be writing that up for a committee or like writing it up so it's a deliverable I could charge for. I'm doing those things to get to the end solution.
Yeah, I mean, we're designers. We spot a problem and we want to fix it. And if you're not given the opportunity to fix it, then I think I'm going to get frustrated.
Yeah, completely. I mean, we did a similar thing with development. So, we'd have, a lot of the time people would say, oh, I've got this site and this isn't working or that isn't working, there's bugs or whatever. And of course, at first it was like, well, great, that's Dan billable for a few weeks because he can just go in and fix those things. But, I think it was when we hired another developer and I could hardly bring myself to like pass that work on to him, even though that's kind of why we hired him. So it was like, I'd be like, let's hire another developer. So, because they'll be junior and they will do these like rubbish bits of development. And then once they started, I was just like, why am I just going to completely like kill this person with rubbish work?
You're such a good boss.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. If you're listening, Lighthouse developer, Christy. If you're listening, Christy, and you probably are, that's what I did for you.
You threw yourself on the sword.
I did. Well, no,
I threw the sword out the window.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to throw him on the sword, but then I couldn't bring myself to do it. No, we just realised, we don't have to do this. Like, let's just say no to working on other people's code base. We want to build things bottom up, and it felt at the time like we were being a bit like precious or something, and that this is especially with development, you feel like, well, everyone's code should be made in a way that someone else can take over on it. But then you step back and go, that's just rubbish. Like, of course that's not true. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like other people's code is difficult to work on, and especially most of the time, if someone's getting someone else to work on it, it's because the first person was awful. So you're just kind of, you very rarely get like, oh wow, oh what, they didn't want to work on this amazing code anymore. So yeah, we just made a policy of, we're only going to develop our own stuff, because that's not, like I say, that's not our specialism. Like, jumping on other people's code and sorting it out is not what we're good at.
And I think part of becoming more of a specialist is turning stuff down. I think that in itself, that process makes you more of a specialist.
Yes.
I guess if you never get into the habit of turning stuff down, you'll always be a generalist. And everyone needs to be more of a generalist when you start off. You need to experiment with what types of work and jobs are out there on the market and see what fits with you and what you really enjoy, where you can see you're having the most impact. And then start turning the other things down that you feel are hindering that.
Yeah, completely. It's the someone mentioned to me the other day, what do you want to do more of, what do you want to do less of, and what do you want to keep the same, as a way of reviewing where that can be used to review a lot of things like people, but certainly can be used for the type of work you're doing and what you're good at. And you're right, like if you don't do that, you just won't get anywhere, will you? It's very hard to understand how to get better at something, make more money out of it, if you're just not even sure what that thing is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it makes clients respect it. Like it's how you get those better jobs, because people go, oh right, you're obviously the best at this, so I'll hire you.
Yep. So maybe it's less about specialisms. Maybe it's just more about focus.
I think so. It's more about getting good at knowing why you're doing something. Because I think if you do that, and this is, let's not go too much onto the vision side of things. I'm sure once I've got a vision statement for you, we can do that episode, and that's fine. It will be a good one. I know it will. And we, like, it is, I suppose it is more about that in a way. It's kind of like, how do I deliver this thing? And it's always good if that is slightly more abstract than just like, how do I, we're the best at HTML5, because HTML5 will presumably become HTML6. That's a prediction for you. at some point.
Never done.
It might. And then but you want to be good at a thing that's, I suppose you want to be a specialist in something that provides value, like direct value, not in the tools and things that you use to do that. You want the specialism needs to be the thing that provides value, because then you can always roll with the punches of something. You'll see the next thing coming. You'll go, HTML6 is here, and you'll be able to quickly analyze whether or not it should be something you're good at.
Yeah, I agree. So how do you see this changing in the future? Do you see yourself continuing on this path, or do you see changes ahead and becoming more focused on a certain thing?
That's difficult.
I find it difficult as well.
Yeah. Damn. Stumped. No, I think it will change, but I hope that vision like solidifies, that there's a startup quote that's like, or maybe it's like the Amazon dude Bezos, be strong on vision but flexible on details. And I think that's the way to do it, is to say, just keep refining that thing that you want to provide, the value you want to provide, and then just build a skill set around that, that's constantly moving. And the thing with especially with development is, I don't even know how someone who's developing now like copes. Like, it's just, there's so many different ways of delivering something, so many different programming languages and whatnot, that I just think if you're whatnot, there you go. That's a CTO of a tech agency describing tech as whatnot. Showing how into it I am. But yeah, like you just got to pick your, just make sure that you've got that vision for why you're learning something or why you're getting good at something, not just because a client wants you to get good at it.
Yeah, I would summarize by saying, either start off broad if you're just starting an agency, if you haven't got a completely clear vision or focus from the very outset, or even if you have, it probably makes sense to start off reasonably broad, try a lot of different things, and then gradually just start to focus on the things where you think you can make the most impact. Maybe start to specialize in a client type and provide a wider array of services to a very specific client type, or perhaps you could narrow down the range of services that you are offering, but offer them to a wider range of clients. Two potential approaches you could take.
Yeah, definitely. You could, and I would also say you should talk about yourself as a specialist even if you're not. So, the way to become a specialist isn't to say, I can't do that at the moment, but come back in 6 months and I'm going to be good at that. It's to say, yeah, that's what we do. That's our specialism, and then panic and dive in and learn it, because you'll actually find that that's basically what everyone's doing. So it's fine. It's not even really lying if everyone's lying.
Yeah, so the best advice we can give is wing it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the really important thing is to dictate your own specialism and not have it dictated to you by clients. Like, I think that thing you said about turning down work and like turning down, like eventually getting to the point where you're like, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah, that's really important, because it'll kill you to not do that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't know where our future lies either. It's difficult just to get out the magic ball and figure out what lies ahead. I think it's going to come out of process and trying things and seeing what we think really works and what we're great at, and nurturing those things to make us even more specialists in our field, and hopefully even more expensive.
Well, the natural, where I would say this conversation is heading, the natural conclusion of being specialist is to become a consultant and to just advise and not actually deliver. And they are really expensive. So, yeah, great.
Yeah,
we're on the road.
Good stuff. Right, I think that about wraps it up for this one. So, anything else to say, Dan?
I'm a specialist at telling you my Twitter handle.
Excellent. So, what is your Twitter handle?
Well, mine personally is Gentus Maximus. You can speak to me personally if you want, but I do talk a lot of rubbish. If you want like web stuff, then best to follow the Lighthouse London one at We Are Lighthouse. Excellent, will do. And you can find me at DarkJohn, DarkeJon, and every interacts for the company stuff. We are _PerspectiveFM on Twitter and perspective.fm on the webs. We are on iTunes as well, so please subscribe and rate us there. Any comments, questions, or feedback, put them through the website, and we'll get those. And we look forward to speaking to you next time. Cheers, Dan. Cheers, Jam.